New game, new battle pass to test in great detail. Of course, with all the cross progression, this does just feel like a continuation of last year's system, but I had many new questions I wanted to answer, especially when they announced the double tier event. I knew I had to test that, because last year, I always felt like those weren't even doing anything, but I never got around to formally testing that. Well, I've come up with some new methods this year. Let's get into some results and start answering those questions. First up, how long does a tier take to earn on average? And do they take longer as you go higher in the pass? Then we can use that to estimate how long the entire pass takes. And finally, does the double tier event actually work properly? So this first test was a very long-term one to get an average of a big sample of time. I played a whole ton of just solo zombies to get a very consistent XP rate, take that factor out of the equation. Before any of the event XP was active, I went through about 20 tiers and had an earn rate of 31 minutes per tier. So about half an hour was the average time to earn each tier. Moving on, then the double XP started. I did another 20-ish tiers and got a 35-minute per tier average. Don't worry, double XP did not make the earn rate worse. As you're going to see, it just seemed clear that the deeper you go in the pass, it does take longer. I measured another set of 20 tiers, still in the double XP, and it was now 42 minutes per tier, starting to ramp up faster now. Then the double tier event went live, and guess what? It dropped down to 27 minutes per tier. You might think, well, it's not far off the 30-minute per tier, so is it really double? But yeah, I think it was truly double tiers, because double that 27, which was actually rounded up, so you get 53, which is perfectly in line with how the later tiers appear to be taking longer. I'm going to leave that number doubled, because at least in Cold War, the double tier event seemed to be working perfectly. You might see where I'm going with that distinction. Well, after that, I used about 7 tiers to test a whole bunch of other stuff I'll get to, but then, after all the events were over, I finished off with the last 10 tiers doing the same zombie stuff to get a final rate of 66 minutes per tier. So all that together draws a very nice looking binomial curve. It's not like I had a ton of data points, but each of these represents a very long-term average, not just a single game or anything, so it's pretty clear that the tiers get longer as you go, in case you had any doubt about that, and this is by how much. It started around half an hour per tier and ended a bit over an hour per tier. Using that, I can say it'll take about 73 hours to complete the full battle pass. Quite a bit, but that assumes you don't use any double tier time. If you did, you could cut that down a lot. And thankfully, I think the most important part is earning the new guns, and those are in the early, faster tiers. It should take about 16 hours to get to tier 31, or only 8 with a double event. They just ran a pretty long one, and I'm sure there will be more. They've been going pretty crazy with the events, so if you can spare a few hours here and there during a tier event, you've got the guns. Well, I can get more into thoughts later. The testing is not over. That was just a bunch of zombies to keep the gameplay consistent. I know people are going to want to know about other game modes, like how about the multiplayer? How about Cold War versus Warzone? So I picked a little range of things to test, starting with Cold War. 4 domination games, 2 where I played normally, and 2 where I was basically fake AFK. I wanted a super low score to compare with. Then I did 4 Plunder games, exact same thing with the 2 and 2, and finally just 3 or 4 Rebirth BR games playing normally. I did all those things during the double tier event, and then repeated it right after the double tier event, because I was most interested in testing that, and just getting a sample of everything. I didn't think it would be interesting or helpful at all to test a bunch of multiplayer modes, for example, TDM, kill confirmed, whatever, because I really don't think they'd be different at all. All you'd see is what modes I happened to play better in. Pretty confident all the same rules apply, where it's mostly about time played as a baseline, and earning XP will also contribute to speeding up your earn rate. Base XP, by the way, not counting boosted XP by tokens or whatever. That was the main focus of the testing last year, trying to relate XP to Battle Pass. I didn't feel I needed to repeat that and get super bogged down trying to explain the random variance there always is match to match. Alright, so what did we find here? First up, the Cold War multiplayer, and remember this was all done in the range of tiers 83 to 90, so the expected rate coming from the zombies would be about 55 minutes to an hour per tier. The first 2 Dom games during the double tier event both got me 27 minutes per tier, so the event was totally working, and that was basically the exact same as what I got in Zombies. Then I did the 2 mostly AFK games, where I just got 1 elimination and waited out the rest of the game. Those got me 34 and 33 minutes per tier. So now slower than Zombies, and basically the same result as last year, where most of your progress comes from the playtime, but actually earning XP will speed things up. If you were earning a ton of XP, you could speed things up more significantly than I did there. Those were not good games by any means. After the double tier event, the 2 Dom games gave me 63 and 53 minutes, perfectly normal. Then the AFK games gave me nothing and 69 minutes. The nothing game is because I tried not doing any damage. I just capped the home flag for some score, and that was it. Well, apparently that meant I was not qualified for the match bonus, which is basically just your time played translated into XP, and that also meant no battle pass either. So it seems like you need to at least do some damage for the game to count. Overall, no surprises there. Multiplayer and Zombies were very similar, but multiplayer can be more variable with how well you're doing. On to Plunder. Oh boy, my first two Plunder games during the double tiers, and yes, I know the Warzone double tiers were activated later on in the event. I did this after getting home on the last day. The event icons were there, it was clearly live. My two games gave me 63 minutes per tier and 540 minutes per tier. Okay, what? Modern Warfare, the fuck? Cold War was so beautifully consistent and fun to test. As soon as I get back to this crap pile, it immediately reminds me how much I hated it. Yeah, it wasn't fun either. I was measuring the fun per minute, and it was clocking in dangerously low, going negative even. The deal with that second match is that it was one of those where it gave me no progress after a totally normal match. I had to restart the game to hopefully see some progress, and I sorta did, but even then, it only moved a few pixels for the whole match for whatever reason. Also, even in that first match that seemed somewhat normal, the double tiers didn't seem to be working. Next was the two pretend AFK games. The first one, I just picked up some cash and then ran around the edge of the map. I was never actually AFK for more than like 5 seconds. I was doing tons of running and jumping, looking around, shooting, reloading, whatever. But I ended up not getting the match bonus for that, which also meant no battle pass. This time, at least it was my fault. Good to know. The next AFK game, I just dealt a little bit of damage and then did the same thing for the rest of the game. And then I did get the match bonus. And what seemed like a pretty expected rate for an AFK game, 79 minutes per tier. Like 25% worse than normal. Again though, it seemed like double tiers was not working, and it seems like you do need to deal at least some damage now to get the game to count. Or maybe something else like doing a contract or hitting a certain amount of cash would also count for people doing a pacifist thing, I don't know. Now, after the double tier event, moment of truth, my first Plunder game gave me 57 minutes per tier. So yeah, not 120, it's not like Plunder is a complete garbage rate, it seems about the same as everything else. But the double tiers totally wasn't doing anything. Then Game 2, yet again, gave me no progress. Great, glad they couldn't figure that issue out in over a year. And this time I didn't notice, so I didn't restart the game to try to check for it to update. I just played the next match, which was the pretend AFK one, and the bar did move after that game. So what I did is just combine the playtime for both games, and both of them together came out to a 78 minute per tier average. So basically the rate I would expect for an AFK game, but that did also include the active game, so that's a little slow, but at least they both did seem to count for something. Then I did the final AFK game, which was a wonderful 267 minutes per tier. Yeah, whenever you see a number that big, it really doesn't mean much. That just means that the bar only moved like 5 pixels, inexplicably, for that whole game. I mean, that'd be fine if it were a more XP-based pass, and that's how much I got for doing the pretend AFK crap, but clearly that isn't what was happening. It was just very inconsistent. It sure was a blast to revisit that trash. Can you tell I'd like to forget Modern Warfare exists? Final thing to touch on before and after the double tier event, I did play some Rebirth, just 3 or 4 games, about 20 minutes of gameplay. During the double tiers, I had 53 minutes per tier, and after, 54 minutes per tier. A decent rate, but again, no double battle pass. Yeah, alrighty then. In summary, for Modern Warfare, double tiers totally wasn't working, so maybe I was right about how it always felt like bullshit last year. I really should have done a test for that, but I was either not interested that late in the cycle, or my pass was already complete by the time an event came on. It's also possible that it's just this event that was screwed up, and my feelings before were off. But anyway, keep that in mind. Aside from that, let's compare all the modes now. The Warzone earn rate proved it could be completely normal compared to all the other stuff when it works, but it is still plagued by the same inconsistent crap as always. It's like every other game doesn't count for anything, and sometimes you seem to get that progress made up to you later, like it's just on a delay and you can restart your game to get it to update, but sometimes it's just gone. Some of my missing progress here never appeared, like the bar was always the same when I swapped over to Cold War to check it in there. So I know Cold War has its own progression issues, as always, with some weird tracking and challenges that can roll back your progress, but they do seem to have a good handle on the basics of XP and Battle Pass. That's been consistent, for me at least. It updates every game without fail with the expected amount. You can play Warzone if you want, and you'll get some progress in the background, but if Battle Pass is your priority, then yeah, I'd avoid it. Especially because another thing that affects these rates in the real world is matchmaking and lobby time. Not a huge impact on multiplayer and Plunder, it would raise those maybe 10-15%, but something like a BR, like Rebirth, if you're getting a lot of short games, like you hot drop, die, and go again, you could be spending triple the time finding a game and waiting to drop in the pregame as you are actually playing. I only counted the time from the plane flying in to the team wipe to get the original numbers, so that could make something like Rebirth pretty awful. Okay, what should you play? Well, the base rate everywhere seems pretty consistent. You should play what you want to play. It doesn't really matter. All you can do to help it along is 1, to be getting more XP. That does still seem to hold true. And XP is also pretty consistent everywhere. So just play what you do well in or what you like. But also, 2, try to minimize lobby time. Like I was saying, hot dropping in BR is gonna be pretty horrible if you tend to only be alive for 2 minutes and then spend 4 minutes requeuing and in the pregame countdown. Now it's 3 times slower than something like Zombies, where there's no matchmaking or lobby time to think about. You can just play for hours. In addition to that, Modern Warfare progression still seems super scuffed when you run into those bugs that might hurt your earn rate even more, and then the double tier events seem to not work. So definitely avoid Modern Warfare when one of those events is live. Zombies would have to be the most consistent, easiest way to grind out the Battle Pass. But again, you can play multiplayer and be totally fine. Now, there's one final question I had to answer for Zombies. How does it work with the time played versus XP thing? Because if it were more time played based, like the multiplayer stuff seems to be, where you could just make it faster by getting more XP, well, it doesn't take a genius to find one of the many glitch spots to exploit that in Zombies. So I timed myself playing 30 minutes of Zombies completely normally, which took me to round 21, perfect, and that gave a 69-minute per tier average, which was actually a bit slower than the 66-minute long-term average rate for the tiers 90 to 100. I think because in those games I tended to go up to round 31-ish, where I was getting more kills, more XP, and ending at round 21 is a bit less efficient for that. Anyway, then I timed myself playing 30 minutes of Zombies where I just cleared round 1 and then spent half an hour on round 2, walking back and forth. So not actually AFK, just not getting any XP. Don't worry, it was still more fun than the Modern Warfare testing. When time was up, I died, and yeah, none of that extra time counted for anything. My battle pass moved a few pixels, the same amount as if I had just gotten those kills and died on round 2 right away. Very interesting. For once, they actually prepared for the most basic kind of AFK exploiters. It seems like Zombies is actually very based on XP, or needing to play the game. I can't say exactly how it works, but just know you should actually be playing Zombies if you want to be progressing. I know you can still do plenty of glitch spots with the infinite ammo wonder weapon easily enough if you want to play that way, but that also doesn't really give you a huge advantage, and it is kinda lame. If you're curious, I also did play a couple games in a group, because I know the more people in the game, the more weapon XP you're getting. It's like 3 to 10 times more weapon XP playing in quads, depending on how much XP you share, and you can fly through the rounds with the various Ring of Fire camping strategies. Some people still ask me about weapon XP. This is totally the best way if you can get some people together. Anyway, playing like this didn't have a huge effect on character XP though, and my battle pass was roughly the same as when I was solo, so I just left that mixed in with the rest of the solo Zombies testing. As long as you're playing Zombies somewhat normally, getting the kills, going through the rounds, you should be hitting that very consistent earn rate. That wraps up all the testing I did. I was at tier 100 and could test no longer. I wish I could present those results faster than stepping through it all like that, but I think there are a lot of little questions people would have if I didn't show all the little findings along the way. Alright, final thoughts on everything here. Well, I'm glad I finally looked into the double battle pass. I knew those events were screwed up in Modern Warfare, or at least I think it's always been this way. I can't go back and confirm. I thought it was pretty easy to feel though. I'm surprised more people haven't complained about that, with how people will complain about just about anything, true or not. As far as the pass taking about 73 hours, well, mine was faster than that because I did use some double tiers, but yeah, that's a pretty long pass. It's also not something I ever care about or think is a big problem. I'd much rather complain about shady, manipulative, retention matchmaking algorithms and things I think are actually ruining the game. I don't see anything really wrong with the battle pass other than I think they're boring. When people say they paid 1,000 COD points so they deserve to get every item, like, are you stupid? What you're buying is access to the pass. The only reason you can get all those items and 1,300 points back is that they know not everyone will finish it, and it's a retention tool to get you to play more. If you think that's dumb, or you know you're not going to play enough to get what you would consider good value out of it, like getting all or most of your points back, then obviously don't get it. It's all cosmetics that you do not need at all. They're just symbols of your playtime. The fact that you have to play a lot to get them is arguably part of what gives them value. They're things not everyone has. If you want to buy some overpriced shop bundle and get your items directly right away, then go ahead and do that. Anyway, the 2 guns are what actually matter, and the 16 hours it takes to get those, or half that with all the double tier events, is a totally reasonable amount of playtime to get the free guns. Yeah, time played is boring and an annoying system to unlock content, but unfair? No, I don't think so. Then there's always the mid-season gun, which is an unlock challenge, and most importantly, if you miss these guns, they also get unlocked challenges. So yeah, nothing I think is worth complaining about here. It was cool to see zombies seem to actually be XP based more than time played. I mean, the multiplayer modes already translate your time played into XP in the form of the match bonus, so I don't see why the pass can't be more based on XP everywhere. I assume it's to help equalize the earn rate for the people of different skills, but there's already more than enough equalizing going on. I think making it more XP or even challenge based could make it more engaging and finally put an end to the never-ending attempts to make AFK progress. Anyway, that's all on the Battle Pass. I couldn't test absolutely everything, but hopefully that answers the major questions, can help you avoid the perils of modern warfare, and to know roughly what each mode gives you. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.